Hey, if you've seen the title of the video, then of course you know what the video is going to be about. But I want to point out a couple of problems in the church today that's stopping people from growing in their relationship with God and also leading other people astray. You know, it's become normal in the church. And what I'm talking about is the titles that people hold in the church, as far as, you know, titles that may bring people pride, like bishops, reverends, pastors, ministers, prophet so-and-so. These things inside the church, these titles are a problem. All right, the reason why is because they exalt people and they distract people from the message, from the word of God. And I'm gonna read a couple of passages as we talk about this. But one thing that I want to point out is what the modern day church does not seem to understand is that just because you're smart, you as a human being, you may have got straight A's, you may have received a bachelor's degree or a doctorate degree, an associate's degree. You know, a lot of people think that because they have that knowledge, then they can apply that human mindset to the word of God. And they think that somehow they're just going to know the word of God. That's not how it works out. If you look at the title of the video, God's wisdom is different from our wisdom. Your college degree or your worldly intellectual ability is a separate discipline from the word of God and what he wants us to do. That's one thing I noticed. People, you know, you got some cocky people in the world and some prideful people, and they think that they can apply that attitude to the word of God, and they're just going to master the word of God like they mastered their, you know, education. That's not how it works. So let's read a couple of these verses that explain, that reinforces what I'm saying. All right. Not many of you were wise according to worldly standards. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Not many of you were wise according to worldly standards. Not many were powerful. Not many were of notable birth. But God chose what is foolish in this world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in this world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in this world, even things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are. So that's 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 26 through 28. Now, Paul started off by saying, not many of you were wise according to worldly standards. Notice that he said worldly standards. A lot of us who preach the word of God were not wise according to the world, according to the standards of the world, because we may not have that education. We may not have those titles that these people possess at the top. The world doesn't look at us like that. You see what I'm saying? That's what Paul is talking about right here. He says, not many of you were powerful. Not many of you were notable birth. A lot of the people that God chooses, they're not powerful. They weren't born into noble families. That's what Paul is talking about right here. A lot of the people that God chooses, it's people like that. We're kind of going to be despised in the world. People are going to look down on us, right? And then he said, but God chose what is foolish in this world to shame the wise. So he chose what was foolish in the world, meaning us who spread the word of God. He chose us to shame the wise. The wise meaning the people who think that they know something, but they don't. God chose what is weak in this world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in this world, even things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are. Now, this passage right here reinforces what I was saying earlier. The people in the world that he's talking about is people who hold those titles. You know, prideful people that think that they can rely on those titles to and think that that's going to carry them through their relationship with God, right? In a different passage in that same chapter, he says, the Messiah did not send me to baptize, but to preach the gospel, and not with words of eloquent wisdom, unless the cross of Messiah be emptied of its power. Now, this part is important right here. Paul said, the Messiah did not send me to baptize, but to preach the gospel, but not with words of eloquent wisdom. He's talking about those people at the top again, those people, those smart people, those intellectual people. God didn't send us to be like that. He sent us to preach the gospel, but not with words of eloquent wisdom, meaning big, fluent words that are hard to understand. That's a lot of those prideful people, you know, with those college degrees, with those titles, those doctors, those pastors, those preachers, those bishops, ministers, those prophets, all these people who hold these titles. This is what Paul is talking about. They speak with eloquent words that's hard to understand. Paul said when you speak like that, it empties the cross of its power. You see what I'm saying? We were not sent to do that. We weren't sent to speak like that. You see what I'm saying? We're here to preach the word of God, not to exalt ourselves. So what happens is when you speak in that manner, for one, it takes away power from the word of God. Two, and it exalts you. It lifts you up instead of lifting the word of God. And people have to spend time trying to decipher what you're saying. So it's unfruitful to speak like that. And this is a problem in the church. You don't never really hear people in the church preach about this today, because if they did, then it would destroy their reputation, because this is speaking against what people in the church do. That's why they don't preach it. Let no one deceive himself. If anyone among you seems to be wise in this age, let him become a fool that he may become wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. For it is written, he catches the wise in their own craftiness. And again, Yahuwah knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are futile. Therefore, let no one boast in man. So Paul said, the wisdom of the world is foolishness to God. So we have to humble ourselves before Yahuwah. You see what I'm saying? He says he knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are futile. They are nothing. Therefore, let no one boast in man. Don't boast in the wisdom of men. The wisdom of man is foolishness to God. We have to learn this. We have to learn that they are just men. It's a separate discipline. What they know and what God knows is two totally different things. And this is why the world is lost today, because instead of following Yahuwah and his word, we're following man, and the thoughts of man are futile. Now, in Matthew chapter 23, Yahushua the Messiah also spoke about this same issue. He's talking about the Pharisees in this chapter. So he says, they love the best places at feast, the best seats in the synagogues, greetings in the marketplaces, and to be called by man, Rabbi, Rabbi. But you do not be called Rabbi, for one is your teacher, the Christ, and you are all brethren. Do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your Father, he who is in heaven. And do not be called teachers, for one is your teacher, the Messiah. So what he's talking about right here reinforces what I was saying at the beginning. Do not be called teacher. Do not be called rabbi. Don't be called these titles, because they empty the cross of its power. And if you see a lot of the leaders in the church, they don't read their Bibles, because they skip right over that. They call themselves reverends, prophets, teachers, so-and-so. We may be teaching the word of God. I might be teaching the word of God, but I'm not the teacher. I'm the messenger. You see what I'm saying? I'm giving you the message, but it's not my teaching. You see what I'm saying? The pastor may be giving you the message, but it's not his teaching. The teacher is the Messiah, the Spirit of God. That's who our teacher is. So when we walk around calling ourselves prophets and bishops and pastors and reverends and stuff like that, that takes away power from the word of God, because it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about the message of the cross. It's about the kingdom of Yahuwah that's coming, that's upon us. So I just wanted to share this message with y'all today. A lot of people seem to not understand it. A lot of these passages, people just skip right over them, you see, or they know it's in there, but it doesn't really fit their lifestyle, and they wouldn't be able to be who they are if they followed these passages, so keep that in mind today. It's not about you. So whenever you see people call themselves these titles, then you already know that they're not genuine, because Yahushua the Messiah, Jesus the Messiah, told us, do not call yourself these things. Do not call yourself teacher. Don't call yourself these things. So whenever you see people doing this, then you already know where their heart is at. They're not being genuine. That's not someone that you should follow, because you already know that they're out to seek glory. That's why people exalt themselves with these titles, because they're out to seek glory. Yahushua told us that you will know them by their fruits. So if you see them doing something out in the day, out in public, out in the church, calling themselves in the synagogues, greeting people, exalting themselves, if you see them doing this stuff deliberately that he told us not to do out in the light, then these are not people that you should follow. And this is why people get deceived so much, because they're following people who do exactly what he told us not to do. All right. So the wisdom of the world is foolishness to God. Remember that. All right. If you really want wisdom and understanding, all wisdom and understanding comes from the Spirit of God. So I pray that y'all may have a blessed day today.